Hey everybody, welcome to the Games Tavern Happy Hour. I'm Mac, there's
I'm
Rob.
Rob.
Yay! And so we have a cool show going for us today. As usual, we're going to start with some news of just things happening in the nerdosphere. And then in the second half, I think you're going to like this, we have a whole bunch of DMs coming on to talk about some of the different house rules that we end up using at our own tables and how we play around with the rules. So it should be a good show. Stick around. And of course, with the first half, if there's any questions or news articles that we missed, feel free to chime in, or you want to know more about one, we'll drop all the links in the chat. But I think without further ado, we can get rolling into the first news stories of the week.
So newsy.
So much news, so much news. We're so professional. So the first one is, I don't know how many people out there, or at least of our viewers, who have played the War Machine and Hordes games by Privateer Press. They're a small skirmish size, maybe a little bit larger war game, but the big thing there is they actually have a RPG game. It used to be running off of 3rd edition D&D, but they've just announced that they're going to be coming up to the 5th edition. So it's going to be a really cool port. I was talking to Rob previously. You were saying that you didn't really get into it, did you?
So I will qualify this. War Machine Hordes, not into it. I've played a little bit of Warcaster, which is their skirmish variant rules, and I mean, it's very light skirmish.
Oh, it is.
5-6 characters. And I enjoy that, but I have played Iron Kingdoms, and I think it's actually one of the best third-party settings available.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing about the War Machine Hordes universe is the setting. It's really, really cool. It's basically like a steampunk feral world kind of thing. Half of the factions are some variant of like a human faction, and they have all sorts of big stompy mechs, and then the other half are varieties on being able to hold on to big monsters basically. I played the Trollkin, so giant troll related people that were just the comic relief.
I typically play dwarves in Iron Kingdom because Iron Kingdom dwarves rule.
Yeah, I think the Rulik dwarfs. Some
Yes,
really
that
cool
was
models.
joke, but yes.
So I'm really excited about this game or this book supplement just because I have a closet full of Warm Hordes stuff I've just never played or never used. Steam Jacks, yeah, the Steam War Jacks are really cool. They have the really big, like the Colossals and the Gargantuans or something like that, where they're basically giant versions of them. So I'm seeing that it looks like Mr. Smithwick is a big fan but hasn't played the RPG. Okay, well,
Let me answer our client's question real quick, since
ah,
I think it's worth answering. Does it connect? No. At least in the previous versions of the rules, they haven't had a connection between the skirmish game and the role playing game beyond being in the same setting.
now that said, you
In
could.
in theory, you can translate your characters back and forth.
Yeah, I've done some stuff like that, transitioning between Warhammer Fantasy Battle down to Warhammer Roleplay through Mordheim and doing all sorts of weird connected playing games, which gave the entire club that we were doing it with the ability to play this thing that they want and sort of begrudgingly also be in the other thing. So it was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work to make the mesh up.
It's not quite that far in theory. We're not trying to make communism work or anything crazy like that. You're just translating from related but kind of different rule sets.
Well, you could do it with using the Iron Kingdoms example. You could basically have all of the plot stuff happening in the RPG setting, and then when you get to actual larger than just your single character get into a fight, you have the whole sort of group or squad or army that they're a part of play that out on the tabletop. That could be a fun way to try and mix those up.
Yeah, I'll just say that Birthright is one of my absolute favorite AD&D settings of all time. So I totally get where you're going with that. But also, I will just play Birthright. So
fair enough. But so this is going to be hitting Kickstarter. Let's go ahead and drop the link in the chat there so you too can see exactly what we're talking about. Ooh, so we don't have a date yet for the Kickstarter, but it is. No, I am not going to try and get you to buy into War Machine and Hordes. It's
Yeah, nobody's gonna try and make you buy this.
yeah,
If you would like to,
yeah.
by all means, have fun.
I'll be
Um,
back in the Kickstarter when it comes up. I'm expecting it to be probably $50 for the book. Uh, Not allowed to go on Kickstarter. That's fair. But yeah, I'm not going to be trying to keep people into the miniatures game. It was a solid rule set, but all the metas I've played in are just a little too competitive for my personal flavor. I am not good at rules, so I normally go there and just get kicked to death. But yeah, so that's that. If you have any questions about that, please let us know. Otherwise, we can go ahead and get moving into the next one. It's another 5th edition release of a third party. I do play 40K. Yes, that is true, Mr. Smithwick. But this one is another third party porting up into 5th edition. This one is Monty Cook's sort of his own world. It's Numenera, and I think Ninth World is what they're calling it. But it's a post-apocalyptic science fantasy game, which sort of happens like something 1,000,000,000 years in our future. And he's bringing that up into 5th edition. I believe it was last used in 3rd edition, maybe 3.5. So they're bringing it up to this one. That's another Kickstarter that's coming up. If you know anything about just the TSR era of, here we go, there's the link for you. The TSR era of Dungeons and Dragons, Monty Cook was, I believe, got in the late 80s, early 90s, and helped to write a lot of modules, and actually wrote most of the 3rd edition Dungeon Master's Guide. Am I butchering that there, Rob?
Nope, you're basically correct. He had a hand in the design of the 3rd edition rules. He's old TSR, and he's also infamous for the Ivory Tower game design essay, in which he defended his poor choices in 3.0 design. So, for those unfamiliar, 3.0 is sort of infamous for having a bunch of trap options in not just the Dungeons and Masters guides, but also in the player's handbook. And when this was pointed out and complained about on Wizards of the Coast forum, Monty Cook actually wrote an essay explaining his justification for this, which is basically, if you're smart enough to avoid them, you deserve the minor victory, and if you're dumb enough to pick them, you deserve to suffer for that.
Yeah.
So,
well, when you say trap options, what exactly are you talking about there? Because that can mean a bunch of different things.
So, this is from the school of character optimization, but also, I guess, from the general quality of play perspective. A trap option is like a feat or a class that is objectively never going to live up to the promise of the idea behind it.
Gotcha.
The bonus hit points feat, I can't remember. Tough was never going to live up to the promise behind it. At first level, sure, Tough is great. You get 3 hit points. It's awesome. It takes you from being a wizard who dies to a house cat to being a wizard who can survive basically anything at first level. But that's it. That you burn an entire feat on that.
Yeah, so that does bring up some balance issues. So that's okay. Have you done any of Monty Cook's Numenera stuff or Numenera?
I played through 1 or 2 games of Numenera. The original Numenera was based off the 3.0 rules, which makes sense. Monty wrote them.
Yeah.
But there were some interesting changes to the rules that made it play very awkwardly, because it was like, all right, roll your dice, now do math, now roll your dice again and do more math. And it was like, but why would we do this? Because it's not in the sense of like, hey, just add these numbers. It's like, no, you have to do long division to figure out what your modifiers are.
Oh.
Why would you do this to anybody?
Yeah, that sounds less than a while. Well, my big question, and I'm thinking a couple people in the chat are probably curious about this one too. How is the setting of Numenera? Because that's the reason I really care about this piece of news.
So, Numenera is an interesting setting. We've actually seen Numenera a lot in modern science fiction programming.
Oh.
It is a distant post-apocalyptic world where society never actually recovered to the same point that it was at prior to the apocalyptic event. So instead of magic being straight up, magic. It's semi-inexplicable technology, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay. Sort of a forgotten, like, Motel of the Mysteries kind of, I have this thing, I don't know what it is, so it's clearly magic or religious.
Right, exactly. Like, it's technology, but it grants powers that are far beyond the understanding of the people that live in the setting now.
All right, very cool. That's I think that could actually be a really fun setting, and if they've hammered out some of the kinks that they had with the third edition reading of it, it could work really well for fifth edition. So this is definitely going on my back it list. Actually, no, it has just released, so I might have to pick that up and find a place that has it.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at the chat, Mr. Smithwick is very interested in Numenera, and it looks like R. Klein 1963 is curious why everyone is so down on doing math.
I don't hate math, and you know this.
I hate math.
In fact, I like math very much. My issue is that when I'm playing a game, I'm not really interested in doing division. Not because I can't do it, but because it's more of a why question. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, it's not as much fun as it could be.
There's no reason to be doing division. if you write well, if you write your rules well.
Yeah, it's at that point I'd rather just go, as opposed to having to do a whole bunch of stuff there. I'd much rather go to like the random tables. It's like, hey, if you roll this, just go into a table tree and go through that. I think that seems like a not necessarily elegant solution to it, but at least easy. But the Monty Cook Numenora under the beneath the monolith. There we go.
But enough about Monty Cook and how he is a terrible human being, which is not really true. I'm sure he's a fine human being.
Just, yeah, he's not like his rules.
Game design theory. Let's talk about the new Unearthed Arcana.
I think,
and how much of it is likely to make it into an actual supplement.
Well, it's for anybody who's not in our chat, which I'm going to go ahead and drop a Discord link for everybody. We've been talking about this a little bit today, just throughout our Discord server, and it looks interesting. It's basically just a whole lot of feats. I think there's 16 of them or so. And some of them range from kind of odd or multi-classing with a feat, all the way up to my favorite one, Chef, which gives you basically gives you an opportunity to, when you take a long or a short rest, to, as opposed to just sit there and like stare off into space or read a book, you can make food that will have in-game effects. I like that.
It's worth qualifying it. It's not that you were staring off into space previously, it's that you weren't actually a good enough chef to give your party bonuses.
Yes.
Which, again, is kind of an RPG staple, and I'm glad that they're finally bringing that into the game. Mm-hmm. Although I really would have liked to see it be like a class feature of like Alchemist or something.
I mean, next character I roll, now it has me tempted to make a halfling, because I think that'll be just, I love the halfling chef idea, or the halfling cook. I always buy it for my Blood Bowl team. So I think that can actually be a really cool kind of way. Just for anybody out there who doesn't have the link up, we'll go ahead and... This is the document we're talking about, so feel free to jump on. Just follow the link and that'll bring you straight to the document. So we're going to go through these real fast. There's Artificer Initiate, which basically gives you... it's like taking... Magic Initiate? The one that gives you just a little bit of spellcasting ability.
There's several of these in here, but yes, that's you basically learn a cantrip. But instead of from Mage, from the Artificer class, which I think is just a limited Mage spell list.
I think so.
Yeah.
I honestly haven't dug into the Artificer. I don't think I actually own the book.
I haven't looked at it either. There's a couple more like that. Eldritch Adept, which basically lets you pick up an invocation from a Warlock class.
Yeah. What does have a cool trick on the invocation, though, is that it lets you, every time you level up, it lets you swap your invocation, assuming it doesn't have a prerequisite you don't meet. And if it does have a prerequisite you don't meet, you have to take a bit of a level, at least of Warlock, at which point, why not just take Warlock all the way?
Yeah, why not be a Warlock all the way? That's a great question.
But then there's a couple others, like Fighter Initiate, which lets you do, you learn to cast Fist, basically.
Well, Yes and no, because you still got to have proficiency with the martial weapon. So you're looking at basically priests that have martial gods may pick this up, and the other one is paladins. Uh, I think it's a huge power boost for paladins, and I think arguably probably a pretty good boost for war priests. I just don't necessarily see it making it as is.
Well, that could actually work for the dwarf wizard I play for Adgern, because dwarves
Right, he
get
has martial
proficiency.
proficiencies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
he could technically run around with a battle axe. They just don't. Uh,
Yep.
but yeah, so I think that could actually be an interesting one. Rangers. We just have someone shouting Rangers in the chat.
Yeah, because
They're a
they're
terrible
thinking
hockey team.
about the tracker feed,
Tracker. Have we
which
gotten there yet? Where is it?
yeah,
Tracker.
basically it
Ah.
hands you a spell called Hunter's Mark,
Oh.
and you can cast it once without using a spell slot, once per long rest. Um,
That's useful.
Hunter's Mark is basically like you know, I guess the best way to put it is like this is a target for the entire party. You get advantages to hit with Hunter's Mark.
Oh. I think it's
Oh,
actually
and
a
you
thing
get
from WoW,
advantage
isn't it?
on survival checks to track, which is not a small bonus. A tracker may actually make it into the game, which
Oh, okay.
is kind of ridiculous because there's an entire class devoted to it.
Well, I know that there's been talk about trying to revamp the. As I
The
understand
ranger.
it, people are not happy with the rules as written Ranger class. I've never played a fifth edition Ranger, so I don't know. Uh,
They're not bad. We should be 100% clear about this. Like the fifth edition ranger is not a bad class. The issue is that the ranger specializations are basically hyper specialized. Like Horizon Walker can definitely deal damage at top level, no problem, and it has a lot of really great mobility advantages. But you basically have to want to plane travel to get the most out of the specialization, which is like, okay, well that's basically let's hand my DM a huge giant problem to deal with.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
the
if
other one
you're.
is the underground specialist, which honestly, if your DM is comfortable running a heavily dungeon based game, and I mean like actual dungeons that are actually underground, that's a great class.
Yeah, and Josh actually just brought up a point I was going to go into next. There's the tandem tactician,
Mm-hmm.
which allows you to use help as a bonus action, which I like that idea. I haven't read a whole lot of the rogue mastermind stuff, but Josh is saying that the rogue slash mastermind is built around that concept of being, kind of a support, help your guy, be able to use the help action. So that's not exactly useful.
Extends the range of help to 10 feet,
True, and I guess
which is huge.
if you're not a mastermind, or if you're not a rogue at all, and you want to be able to dabble in that, I could see taking a splash of that without having to splash in the actual multi-classing for rogue. So it could be useful. I don't know how much that really infringes on the mastermind archetype. I would want to not do too much.
Yeah. But the flip side of it is they may be looking at removing or at least replacing the mastermind archetype with something that is a little bit more active.
Yeah, that could make sense.
I do want to give a shout out to the one that I think is actually going to make it through, and I think is actually excellent, which is shield training. So shield training is a feat in the sense that it gives you proficiency with shields and increases strength, dexterity, or constitution, which I think is pretty generous. But you can take your shield off or restore your shield to your arm as a free object interaction, which is huge. That means you
Huh.
can basically swap your shield around if you want to use your bow. That is a huge quality of life improvement for fighters.
Yeah, that's big.
And if you have spellcasting or pact magic, you can use your shield as a focus, which is huge for
Oh,
clerics.
well, so now a wizard could take shield training and
Yes.
have just run around behind like a pavis, have the +3 or whatever it would give them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's. I think that could actually be pretty interesting.
I'm excited to see shield training in use because I think it's going to actually change the dynamics for a lot of the classes in the game in a good way, not a bad
Yeah.
way.
So our client
Um,
is saying who would spend a feat on the practiced expert feat to gain proficiency in a tool.
I'm gonna go with nobody. I'm gonna
Yeah,
go with absolutely nobody on that one. Which is again, looking at these, I look at these and I go, all right, cool. All right, I can become a slashing damage master. Great. That's not gonna help me in general play.
yeah. The tool proficiency, I don't see that being wildly useful unless you know that you're going into you're going into a campaign that's going to be very specific. Like, hey, we're going into a campaign that's going to be in mines, exclusively in mines. Well, I'm going to take mining tools and be good at that, or something. Or we're going into a city.
You need you. It comes up only in a situation where your character needs to be immediately good at something.
Yeah,
Because the rest of the time you're going to handle that in your downtime action.
yeah. Let's see what else is. The damage master feats don't look quite good enough to spend a feat on. Yeah, some of them are not great, but again, some of them are really interesting.
Right.
I can't sing Chef's praises enough. I think that that's a really cool. I would seriously consider spending a feat on that. I normally try to
This
avoid
is
feats, but I think that's good.
Unearthed Arcana. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that they put out for playtesting because they want to see how it actually gets used in play and want to hear about it. Stuff like Metamagic Adept they put out just to see what will happen when they give wizards the ability to do the same thing as sorcerers can.
Yeah,
Which is, of course, just shenanigans and absolutely never going to make it into actual play. and, but they want to put it out there and see what happens, just to see, whether it's as bad as they expect it to be or not.
that makes a lot of sense. It is just a playtest thing. But in the chat there, before we completely move off of this, let us know which ones you think are the best, which ones you don't think are going to make the cut, or just yeah, those two. Let's go with which one you really are hoping to see move into the real rules, and which ones you are kind of not expecting to see move in. And we'll keep talking about a couple that we really like.
Well, I think we can move on. We got to talk about D&D Beyond and how it just doesn't stop updating, and all of these updates are great.
Right, Chef. Yeah, see, everyone loves Chef. All right,
Well, yeah,
that's me. I'm going
everybody
to just
likes
mic
people
drop
who
and
cook
walk out
for
of
food.
here.
Yeah.
So yeah, D&D Beyond is definitely doing some updates. Last week we talked a little bit about how they released a new map, or a new iPhone app, and I think it's on Android too.
Yep.
And we weren't fans of it. It's got some problems, unfortunately, some glaring oversights.
New apps, man. New
Yeah,
apps. But
well,
that's not what really excites me. The player tools app, sure, yeah, great. I can already look at my character sheet on Beyond on my phone.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and Beyond does have a mobile browser setting, by the way, for people that aren't aware of that. So you actually can look at your stuff on a
On
mobile phone.
On the app side, though, they did in their dev notes. They're actually saying that they are going, or their change notes, or whatever it is. They're saying that the next thing that they should be working on, shy of any catastrophic problems they have to fix, is going to be including spells and item descriptions, which I think
Yeah,
will kind of change everything. I think that'll make the app much more useful. But what are
which
you
makes
excited about?
spells look good. So there's a lot of back end improvement going on the Beyond site. They just rolled out the the dice tools test to basically
Mhm.
everybody. Um,
Yeah.
I've been messing around with the dice. I actually like it. It's not a flat roll. So for people that aren't programmers and don't mess around with random number generation, there's a lot of schools of thought about how to do a random roll correctly. Um, there's the flat roll, which is literally you just tell the engine to roll the die straight up, um, which is fine if you're using like a lot of d6s and you already have a lot of random elements in play. But when you're rolling 1d20, for example, that can become very problematic because the 1d20 roll is flat. There's nothing there. So what a lot of people do is they program it to actually roll 2d20 and then average the result, or 3d20 and then drop the lowest or drop the highest at random. There are a lot of approaches to this, and I mean, like I said, I've been poking around the Beyond. I don't think they're doing a flat 1d20 roll. I think they're doing some sort of modulated roll, which feels better for players.
I thought it
Uh,
was flat because, or the way you've described flat, because I've rolled I don't know, probably 100 dice in there, and it seems to be a pretty even dispersion.
I looked at it and I thought you were right about that the first time. I think they may be rolling a significant number of dice behind the scenes to generate a better randomness. So one of the other ways that you can do this is basically it rolls flat, except it says if their last roll was an extreme 1 to 3 or 17 to 20.
Oh, so it has like polishing, real-time editing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could very well be happening. I kind of hope it's not, because they are supposed to be a digital representation of physical random
Actual dice. Yeah.
But we got a little bit going on in the chat there. So regarding the dice roller, does it let you put in random strings, or are you tied to something on the sheet? I can't seem to get it to do a booming blade / dagger attack correctly. For that, anytime I've needed to roll dice, I just click as many dice as I'm supposed to roll. Like if I've dropped, if I need to do 6d6, I just click the d6 6 times and then roll them, and then add in the modifier myself. But I believe it does have kind of a virtual tabletop kind of esque thing where if you click it on certain things, it will add in the modifier and all that other stuff. But
does Booming Blade not have a there's a button basically on the damage that you can click on, and it'll roll the damage dice for you. If it doesn't have that, then you got to enter the dice in manually, which I guess would be kind of a pain in the butt.
Yeah, that's really where I use it the most, so I don't have to be fishing around for like 8d6. I just click the d6 button a little bit and make that go. I think that works a little bit better. Hey, Pond is here. Welcome, and thank you for the cheering.
Hey, Pond.
Are we missing anything else in the chat? Josh actually did put in a great piece there saying basically how to look at the UA feedback. And this one is actually the survey for the June, or from June, for the subclasses that they released. So I'll go ahead and reshare that because we're talking about it. Boom, bam, there we go. So that's the link there to check out the UA subclasses that he was talking about and see the kind of feedback they're talking. And then we also have shield training is interesting from R. Klein, and the mechanic of using other spell slots to cast the one use spell of some of the feats I like. Yeah, I think shield training could be really cool. And the ability to sort of play around with your spell slots and your casting ability, I think that could be really cool. It could work if they polish it a little bit.
Again, if you want to be very active in shaping how D&D moves forward, I definitely encourage you to start getting into the Unearthed kind of stuff and definitely voting on it, because those votes do matter. They actually do take player voting very seriously. The other part of it is you get involved in the beta testing program and more directly provide feedback on stuff.
Yeah. And pretty much with any of these kinds of things, any of the games that I play with any regularity or rules that I thumb through, if they have a open request period, I like to provide feedback because I like complaining about games. I think you do too, Rob, and because I know so much about the games and I know everything and they should listen to my advice. They're asking for it. Give it to them. As much as I like to think that everyone is watching our stream and be like, oh, those guys know what they're talking about. Sometimes if they're asking for it, just give them a feedback. Hey, I really like this mechanic. That's great. Or
Yep.
This one is kind of garbage.
Yep. It's funny that you say that, Mr. Smithwick, because Josh's experience with basically the same mechanic in the Rogue Mastermind is that it is not nearly as useful as you think it is.
I could see it being more useful as a feat as opposed to a subclass.
Yeah. I think this may be a push towards replacing the Mastermind subclass with something else for rogues, which I think is good. But I also think we should move on because I know there's another announcement that you're super excited about, Mac.
There are a couple announcements. 2 more. All right, we'll save the next one, so we're just going to roll down one more. Everyone on the stream knows I like Warhammer. It's kind of my guilty pleasure. But they have released their new box set, and it's sold out in under an hour. And if you look around the internet, probably because of scalpers, which is really disappointing because you see a lot of stuff going around on eBay for I think it's a under $200 box set selling for $500 because they scooped it up. Games Workshop decided that that's not cool, and they came out with basically saying, "Hey, if you want it, we'll make you more. Just pay us, and we'll make it, and we'll ship it to you." So they're making it
Yep.
made to order. So if you care, boop, there we go. And I really like the idea. I really like the new Games Workshop. They've been playing with that over the past 5 years. They've been trying to become a better company,
Yep.
do right by their customers. And this
This is a
one, they've
very,
yeah, it's
very customer positive.
it's gotten a lot better because 5-6 years ago it was garbage. It was hard to be a Games Workshop fan. They really didn't like you at all. But the no, actually, this isn't a false sense of scarcity here. This is they've come out a couple times and said this was the most produced box set they've ever made, and just scalpers jumped on it, and so it kind of ruined the fun for everybody.
Is worth just taking a moment here to point out that, some people came to the community 10 years ago. At the time, 40K was kind of dead,
Yeah.
or at least on a very, very heavy down curve. It has completely reversed course. I don't think it's because people have more money.
No, because
per
it's
se.
still more expensive than ever. But
Right.
it's-
I think it's because their customer service has improved so much. There's a real effort to like make sure that fans actually understand the rules. Make sure that fans are playing, hopefully in safe environments, because that was always an issue before. And it definitely in terms of stuff like, hey, did you miss Indomitus? Well, that's our bad. We're gonna fix it for you. Just tell us you want it. We'll make it for
Yeah.
you. It's
They've-
huge.
They've been doing a lot of kind of community policing stuff too. It's kind of it's an open secret that the 40K universe is drawing to some pretty rough groups. There's a very kind of a fascist neo-Nazi following for it, unfortunately, which hurts because I love the game, I love the universe, but for some reason these people, it's the whole universe is a satire of like 80s Britain. That's what it is.
So not just 80s Britain. They've expanded out.
Sure,
80s
sure.
Soviet Union, 80s neo-Nazi movement in America. I mean, it makes fun of basically every extremist ideology.
But that's the thing is it makes fun of it, but it's been going for so long that it's more subtle now, or it's sort of shellacked under layers of its own stuff that if you don't know that and you just see, oh, this is like a really powerful fascist state, cool, that's an ideal, and it's like, no, that's not what it is at all. And so about a month ago, a little over that, they actually released a statement saying, hey guys, no, that's not, Warhammer is for everybody. It's not just for your group. It's not just for people who think like you. And if you have a problem with that, you're not going to be missed. And that caused something of an uproar, and mainly among people that I don't want to have at my gaming table anyway. And and they sort of doubled down on like, no, it's happening. Sorry. People got demonetized. It was a whole thing. But that's a different thing. They're becoming more customer conscious. It's a great thing, and I love that. Let's see. So our client is saying that actually, yeah. So they did limit how much they sent to friendly local game stores, Mr. Smithwick. I don't know how much, what kind of distribution problems they were having with that. I only have what's coming out in the news. The cost of, or our client saying the cost of gaming grad school did not do Games Workshop stuff except Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl is a fantastic game because you can do it really cheap, and it's a fantastic game. Huzzah Hobbies in Ashburn said their pre-order numbers weren't honored. Oh, yeah, that is a problem. Any order for more than 45 was just limited to 45. Yeah, that's not great. That's not great at all.
I think that was probably just they looked at the requests on their distribution channels and were just basically like, we can't meet those. The fair thing to do at that point is just say, hey, if you ordered more than 45, we're giving you 45. Does it feel good for the stores that get less than they ordered? No.
Yeah,
Does it feel good for everybody to have an opportunity to get the game? Yeah. I think that's what that's what the focus at Games Workshop was on, was making sure that, they got a huge distribution, a broad distribution, rather than certain stores that do put through a lot of copy, like Huzzah, having enough for all of their customers all at once.
Yeah, because I've gamed in a couple friendly local game stores, and I don't know if any of them would have moved 45. And these weren't dead game stores; these were ones that were churning over quite a bit of inventory. I don't know if any of them would have moved 45 in the first week or two. So that might be a reasonable number based on whatever numbers they're looking at. But
so I guess for some context for folks that are outside of the DC metro area, Huzzah is basically the friendly local game store for most of the population that lives and works in and around DC on the Virginia side.
They're out
They
in
have a
Ashburn, right?
massive customer base because this is such a information worker heavy environment. Uh, uh, tell me I'm wrong, Mac.
No, no, that's right. There's a lot more white collar jobs here, uh, and yeah, there's kind of a dearth of actual places to play games. If you don't want to play at Games Workshop stores,
Mhm.
which is, you know,
Huzzah has what, three, four big rooms now?
I've never been. I was planning on trying to make a go this spring and try and get some
Yeah,
gaming in, but things
I
happen.
think it. I think it's four big rooms now for
That sounds
gaming
right.
with
I've heard
tables.
some of
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They expanded, doubling their space. Yeah, it's always been a big store. Now it's a huge store.
Which is great. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And it's kind of a shame to see that they're having a distribution issues with the game, but it happens, and they're trying to rectify the situation. So that's probably worthwhile. But we'll go ahead and move on to one more piece of slightly more RPG related news because that's what you guys come here for. I'm assuming. So if shout out in the chat if you've ever played Massive Darkness. And for anybody who hasn't, but you're following along at home, it's a big game. It comes in a big old box. It has like 75, 80 miniatures in it. And it's basically a dungeon crawl in a box. You do level up. You can upgrade your characters, get new loot, go and fight monsters and stuff. So that's a good time. And there's a couple games that are doing that, like Descent. That's a fantasy one. Then there's Imperial Assault. Both of those are Fantasy Flight games, I believe. And there's a couple other things that are a couple other games that's starting to become more popular to have like a boxed RPG.
these are all echoes of Hero Quest,
Yeah,
the granddaddy of boxed RPGs.
I was so close to
Uh,
getting a new Unbox Hero Quest, and it fell through. I don't. Oh, I'm
yeah,
so sad.
yeah.
But yeah, it's that idea of you don't need a library of library of books to play this game. You just need to have the book that's in this, and all of the pieces and board games and all that stuff is here. Well, Massive Darkness is probably the biggest box I've seen. There might be one or two. Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven has the biggest. Massive Darkness is like a close second. Either way, it's a massive pile of stuff you get for it. And they just announced Massive Darkness 2 is coming out. It's going to be going to Kickstarter soon. Don't know when that's going to be. But but it's a cool game. I really like that format. Full disclosure, I've only played one or two rounds of Massive Darkness. I just didn't get into it. I always went off and played something. I think I was playing Gaslands at that point, and blowing up other cars is more exciting to me. But Massive Darkness 2 should be a really cool time. If you like the Cool Mini or Not games. Have you ever played any of the Cool Mini or Not stuff there, Rob?
No, I have not, which doesn't really mean anything. My board game uh, range is pretty narrow for somebody who's so into gaming. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
just bad at board games.
Yeah, Mr. Smithwick actually has a really good point there. Everything from Cool Mini or Not goes on to Kickstarter. They do. I've talked to a couple people who think that they have an idea about why that happens, but that's just speculation and it's not good, so I'm not going to say it.
Well, I mean, we can talk about Kickstarter economics, which is
Yeah,
basically that it provides money for publishing up front, which makes it less of a gamble for a company.
yeah. But then by the time that you end up, it hits retail shelves, everybody has it, and so you get a lot of people who will back it in my local area. All of us backed Zombicide because it was a huge deal. I love Zombicide Black Plague. It was a really fun game. But then our local game store also bought at like the retailer level, so they got a dozen copies and a cool standee and all that stuff. And there was no one there to buy it because we all had the game,
Hmm.
and he ended up having to sell them at a loss, which is that's kind of problematic. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just some issues on the Kickstarter model for retailers. I'm not a huge fan of it. I like it when they try and spin up and like, hey, we're a new company and we need capital to get us going, and here's the thing, and here's a whole bunch of extra nonsense that you get for helping us, and goes out there. But an established company doing it, leaves kind of a sour taste in my mouth. That said, Massive Darkness actually looks like a cool box. I might pick it up from Huzzah or Curio Cavern or Complete Strategist. These are all the ones I go to. So it's because it's the RPG setting that we're talking about. They're saying that the core box is going to have 10 basically one-shots in there, and you have the ability to string together as a full campaign if you want. It looks like the campaign is going to be an add-on, unfortunately. So you get a book and it tells you how to string it all together as a campaign, but it does what it is, or it is what it is. But you'll be able to go from level 1 to 10. I have no idea how that scales with, is level 1 I'm a 4 HP peasant, or is level 1 I'm the guy from Dark Souls or whatever. So I have no idea how that's actually going to scale, but it's an interesting concept. Master Darkness was super popular. So a second one makes sense, and I look forward to seeing what's happening there. Let's see. I think we're up to speed with the chat. Yeah, everything they do goes on to Cool Mini or Not, or goes on to Kickstarter. Zombicide's fantastic. Speaking of, Dark Souls board game is pretty great. I actually haven't played that one. Rob, have you?
Nope. In fact, the last adaptation board game that I played, especially from a video game, was the World of Warcraft board game, which, by the way, was pretty good.
Yeah, I have. It's 5 feet that way. I can't almost touch it. I picked up the Trogdor board game.
Oh my goodness, we'll have to play that when we're humans again.
It's cooperative, so I think we might actually be able to do it on stream, or at least digitally. But I don't know yet. But yeah, that's the only video game to board game I've ever picked up.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much all the news we were talking about. Out there, is there anything else that we missed that you want to chat about? If not, I think we can go ahead and... there we go. We have a Discord. Delightful.
Get set up.
So we'll take a quick break here, probably 5-10 minutes, and cycle in some more faces. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back in a bit. Leave us in the chat there if you have, wherever your chat is. I don't know where yours is. But leave us in the chat your favorite story, which arcane or unearthed arcana you're excited about. Whatever it is we talked about. We'll be back in a minute. All right. See you guys in a bit. Hey everybody, welcome back. As you can see, we're joined by a couple more people, or three more people specifically. And I have it backwards, so that's not fair. Nope. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I just realized I screwed up the naming plates, so I'm going to fix that.
Hello, I'm
Oh,
Rob.
who's my name?
Oh, you're right. I got
Oh,
Rob and Josh backwards.
darn it.
I interact
It's okay,
with both of them so rarely.
We know who we are, which is really what's important.
There we go. Okay,
Yeah.
that looks more accurate now. All right, so welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to, as opposed to just randomly pontificate about things we care about, we're actually going to try and give you some insight behind the DM screen. So the topic of conversation we're going to be leaning in today is actually talking about how we talked about the rules and how they work in the Unearthed Arcana a little bit. Now we're going to talk about how we actually try and manipulate the rules ourselves. Something that would be known as like house rules or just ignoring rules. Or basically any edits that we use around the, around our own tables. Things that just make the games work a little bit better in our opinions. Giant caveat on this, of course, is that these are purely our opinions. We're not trying to be, getting into any fights with anybody in the chat there saying, no, this thing is absolutely vital and you need to have it. Unless, it gets followers, I guess. I don't know. But overall, this is just how we run games, the things that work for us. Feel free to try some of these if you'd really like to. If not, we can, I don't know, just enjoy the show.
Yeah.
So first, going around, let's see. I guess Josh, what's a homebrew rule that you like to use? Don't have to go into all of them. We're just gonna have a chat, see what we do.
See, actually, I'm a little anti-homebrew. I like to embrace the rules as written and dig deep into them, find the variant rules, and kind of utilize that aspect. Just because I'm used to like a lot of pickup games,
Right.
I like the players to have the expectation that if the rules as written, you read the player's handbook, you bought it. I'm not like writing a player's handbook too that you need to learn if you're going to sit at my table.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to approach that, especially if you're doing casual games where people are going to be coming and going, and it's not the same group of people you've been playing with forever. I think
as far as homebrew, what I do embrace is the reskinning of things, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, like, if somebody wants to play a kitsune at my table, rather than go find a homemade, like, werefox class, maybe I look at the warlock rules and say, okay, well, you're a kitsune, and every time you level up, one of those foxtails you get is a warlock invocation.
Okay. Yeah, I think that could work really well. Let's see, Corey, you're next on this line. What is? Oh yeah, we'll go that way. Sure, whatever. So what's something that works for you? Oh yeah, everyone should introduce themselves. I'm so sorry about that, guys. I knew everybody, so I just figured that they knew you. So yeah, I'm Mac. I do this every week. Josh, who are you?
Hi, I'm Josh. I'm playing in the Velkin Weave on Wednesdays, and I've been DMing for about 20 years-ish.
Corey, we're saying that we can't hear you.
Nada.
No, nothing there, Corey. Well, while he's figuring that out, Carly, what do we got?
Howdy, I'm Carly, and I have been DMing for like 2 years, so nothing on that 20-something, but I run a couple games in the Games Tavern, and I occasionally run one-shots for the stream.
And then there's Rob.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rob. I'm usually stuck here with Mac. I have 20-odd years of GM experience, but that doesn't mean I'm a better GM than anybody else sitting here.
Yeah, that's more experience.
Valid.
Just means you have more experience to draw on, and be like, oh, I don't have to make something up new here. I can do this thing that no one at the table was there for, and just make that happen. Hey, check it out. And yeah, I'm Mac. I've been doing this for about 15-ish, maybe longer than that. I don't know, sometime in the past 15 or so years. And I've been GMing for about 10 of them. Corey, want to try you again?
Can you hear me now?
We can!
Hey, I figured out the problem. I just wasn't pressing the button because I'm a dumbass.
Push to talk.
Yep, forgot I was on push to talk. Okay.
Gotcha. No
I
worries.
was literally using it 5 minutes earlier. All right. Corey, I've only been playing D&D about half a dozen years and DMing about the same amount of time.
All right.
Yeah, I've played a handful of others, but not to any sort of serious extent where I count that as valid experience.
Fair enough. Are there any rules that you when you're DMing at your tables? Because you do a lot of like Salt Marsh, I think is your current campaign, right? But you also did something in Wildmount.
Yeah, I've got two games I'm currently DMing, and I'm playing, and I'm actually not sure how many I'm currently playing in right now, but I am in the Velkin Weave with Josh on Wednesdays,
Okay.
7 p.m. Eastern time. When I for the games that I DM, I like the bonus action to take a healing potion. And
Yeah.
most, the rules as written is using a magic item is an action. That is raw. Okay, but I don't really use it for anything else besides healing potions. It's not just any other random potion, but to give yourself a healing potion, do that as a bonus action. But if you're trying to apply it to someone else, that's a full action.
That makes sense. That's I think Reed is actually saying that he does that one. The same thing. I think that's how we play in, at least for Whiskey Magic and Destruction. We do. It's a bonus action to quaff a potion.
I think that's a fairly popular house rule.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it just helps keep things flowing a little bit. But I can see why, if you're doing a really intense, a fight that has been planned to the action economy to a T, I can see why that could be problematic. But it hasn't really been an issue in any of my games.
Yeah, they use that house rule in Critical Role
Oh,
as well.
hey, there we go.
Yeah.
Never actually watched Critical Role, so. Carly, what are some of the house rules you like to use?
So I like to do improvised skill checks. So, like for example, in one of my parties there's a barbarian. Hint, it's Corey. And so like when he wants to do intimidation, I'll let him use his strength modifier for intimidation instead of his charisma modifier, because if he's physically trying to intimidate someone, it makes a lot more sense that he would use strength for that. Like, you don't have to be charismatic to try and make somebody pee their pants with a shovel, so
That did do.
Sorry, just to
He
heal
did.
water.
yeah, I just didn't that, and then flanking. I like flanking.
Yeah, that's. I think flanking is now. It's just if you're
Isn't it
next to
rough?
someone. But flanking was like a Pathfinder rule, was it not? Or a 3-5 rule?
It was
think
in
it was
previous editions.
3.
3. Okay.
Yeah.
And Rob, let's see what you care about enough to change.
So I play a lot of games, and these days I find myself playing old games more and more, which means I find myself looking at old game mechanics and going, ooh.
Yeah.
So my big thing from running D&D is that I absolutely do not at all ever travel in things like Detect Evil. You can't cast it; it doesn't exist, because it doesn't make any sense in the context of running a game world to me as a GM. Because everybody thinks that they're the hero of their own story. So how is Detect Evil supposed to work? I know there are people that go, well, it should work on creatures that are absolutely evil because they live on the plane of elemental evil. Cool, that's fine for you. I just don't think it makes any sense. But with those old games, they're all built, on the old style of playing, which didn't include things like the action economy. And I find myself rewriting a lot of those old games to include action economy rules because that really pulls in player engagement.
Yeah, that's one of the big lessons I've kind of been learning with digging around, and somewhere back there is a bunch of the old stuff. I think right there. Digging around in the old books, they are rough. They are not as polished as you would hope. Looking at the even the white box rules, those are they're garbage. You cannot play the white box anymore. It is an awful system, and I feel bad saying that, but it's like, yeah, it's not. If you grew up on modern games, it's 40 years old. It's not great.
We've come a long way.
Yeah.
It's ancient, and it looks ancient, and it really ancient if you don't make any changes to the rules.
So like people don't still drive Model Ts. We've advanced.
That's a great segue to my final one, which is that starship and vehicle rules are always wrong. And that is a matter of fact. Although I will say that there is one notable exception. Ironically, it's the first edition of the Star Wars RPG had perfect vehicle rules. I don't understand it. To this day, you cannot recreate them in any other system. They were just at the time they were exactly what was needed. They were very perfect in the context of the system itself in the moment. But everything else is bad, and it's because a lot of vehicle rules are written very technically, which is great, except that all the games that you're trying to use them in are cinematic. So all of a sudden you have to slow down your cinematic scene and deal with a whole bunch of technical rules about vehicles, and it's just like, why would you do this to your game?
Is that the West End game?
Yes, the original West End games, Star Wars. The original was basically perfect. The revised and updated second edition rules have a very polished version of the rules that include all of the Starfighter combat rules.
Yeah, I've noticed that myself when a few years ago I was running a Starfinder game, and oh my gosh, the vehicle rules were like the combat rules were fleshed out enough. They were basically Pathfinder with the laser guns and a little bit of extra stuff in there, but the vehicle rules were a completely they operated completely different, and just didn't really mesh. It felt clunky when you switched.
I suppose I should add that Traveler 3rd Edition did have vehicle rules that made sense for Traveler, which is that you're supposed to hate every vehicle that you're in. And then it really did make you hate every vehicle that you were in.
So, what do you guys think about the idea of? And this is probably more of like a Pathfinder problem because their library was monstrous. But one of the ways that I do it is actually restricting books very tightly about what are allowable sources.
I don't do that. Hardly ever. I love variety, and I know that you hate variety, Mac. But
wow, no. It's not that I hate variety.
I'm sorry,
it's that I can't know all of. I don't know all of the billions of rules that people are digging around.
My biggest requirement, because I don't usually limit for that. So my biggest requirement is I have to look at your characters and approve them before we play the game. Like if there's a weird mechanic that I don't understand or can't like wiggle into the campaign, then we'll figure out a replacement for it. But I just love the variety of all the different races and classes and stuff. The only ones I don't allow are artificers, because artificers are dumb.
It's totally not biased at all. So it's a very
Not biased at all.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I'm monkeying around with the volume. Can I get a sound check from Corey and Josh real fast?
Do I sound any better now? Or louder? Do I sound any louder now?
And
Tiny
this is
bit.
me talking in my own voice.
Dire Rabbit says no.
All right, I've got you both at 200% here, so.
I'll just do this again. Get really close with my
Ooh.
microphone.
Ah!
It's so loud
you
though.
It's all sultry tones.
Good evening.
Today on the Games Tavern.
Games
So
Tavern
to get
after
back
dark.
on track on subject anyway, I'm
Thank
a
you,
1+1 kind of guy. I definitely appreciate the idea that you can have one book and then maybe if it makes sense you can have another one. And that's on top of obviously the basic options available in the PHP.
Yeah, I can see it being more for like races. I could see it being very useful or much less intrusive to play out. It's like, hey, you want to play a Tabaxi? Okay, I guess go play a Tabaxi. Let me read up on that. But for things like mechanics, I don't know the more esoteric classes. So if someone wants to play an artificer, I don't know how to build for an artificer.
In 3.5, I was very, very strict about this stuff. I had like an approved list of classes and prestige classes that people could play, because my experience told me that you shouldn't let people play certain things, and you definitely shouldn't let them play certain combinations of things.
I could see that being worthwhile. What are you thinking on that one, Josh? Being from the open play background.
Well, coming from an Adventurers League background, they would restrict it to Player's Handbook +1, which would mean typically you could choose either a different race or a different subclass because of the way the books are published. But me personally, I would open it up to any combination.
Okay.
Although I think the way they do play testing, that could potentially lead to very overpowered or broken combos. When you combine a certain race with a subclass, there could be unintended consequences.
Yeah, I could
Yeah.
definitely see that's one of my big concerns is getting like a race that can fly. So not Kenku, but the other bird people.
Aarakocra.
Or a Kokra.
Aarakocra, yeah. And it's like, oh, hey, you've completely made all my pitfalls completely useless because you just fly to the end of the dungeon, and that's just it's like, oh,
Well, just the one, you know.
yeah.
You can't fly everybody across.
And
Yeah.
like
we
in
got,
Adventures League, they would say, hey, none of those at level 1, the flying classes, because, yeah, it does break stuff at
Yeah.
tier 1.
Makes a lot of sense. Let's see, what are some of the other ones that were... Reed kicked in a couple of them. One of the ones that I know that he tries to hold on to is 6-second rounds, because it's not... I don't think it's actually written anywhere in the rulebook that you're supposed to do your action in 6 seconds, just that it is a representation of 6 seconds. So he tries to keep us moving, and I think that's a really worthwhile thing. But how do you guys handle round management, making sure that your players aren't sitting there, thinking out a chess turn on their turn?
I like to give them a heads up. Like, I do like the bullpen thing. I'm like, all right, you're next, and you're on deck. So, start thinking ahead of time, just to give them that warning, so they're not, you don't get the deer in the headlights look when it's their turn, even when it's, round 6.
Yeah, that's
That's
fair.
so sweet of you.
And actually, I think that actually could really work because I know a couple times we've, if it's like, hey, I know that Corey's always going to be going after Carly, so Carly's up, Corey, you're next, get ready. If I all of a sudden go, Carly's up, Josh, you're next, and Corey's like, hey, you're about to skip my turn. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's helped a lot. I very rarely deal with it because of that. Very rarely deal with people that take us too long on their turn, unless they just have that particular type of personality where they overanalyze everything. Which I've got like 2 friends that do that. They're not in the same gaming group, thank God, but it does happen every now and then.
Yeah, that's an issue. Carly?
I just I like to keep initiative like to myself for the most part because I think it's fun watching them get scared with who's going next. But I just expect that my players plan their turns ahead of time. Like I do it regardless when I play, especially if I'm like a caster. I'll have a plan, and then if that plan won't work, then I have a backup plan. So
Yeah.
I expect that my players would show me the same courtesy. I don't know why my brain didn't want to get that word out, but
Words are hard.
yeah, words are hard. But like, yeah, I expect that the same courtesy of like know the spell that you want to use and the reason that you want to use it. I'm a little forgiving if your 3 plans got messed up in the combat, but like, come on. You've been playing long enough, you can figure out what you're going to do on your turn, probably.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have Dire Rabbit in the chat, just all over the place in the chat. So I'm not going to go too far back. Don't make the DM look up rules for you. Yeah, that's more of like a player, how to be a courteous player at that point, not really a house rule. I know when I'm doing this, one of the things I typically brief my players on is like, hey, know what you do, because I have a million other things I have to be handling. So I'm trusting that you know your rules. Please, for the love of all that is holy, know your rules. But it's not really a house rule. It's sort of like a please,
Yeah,
Please be
it's one
nice.
thing to ask the DM to make a judgment call because you're not sure of an interpretation, but
Yeah.
you should be like, so how far can I jump? And then wait for the DM to look up the jumping rules again. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Come
you
on.
do before your
Come
turn.
yeah.
That's actually why I like streaming more than being at the table. I can have another browser up and just look up that rule to refresh myself. Because
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't have the grappling rules memorized if I'm not playing a grappling character.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a DM who actually just did grappling this was for Pathfinder, but he just did it as just a simple opposed roll because the old Pathfinder grappling table or grappling rules was like 3 pages, and it was it was awful. It was ponderous and cumbersome and just bad to play with. So he's like, yeah, opposed roll, strength modifiers. Hey, check it out. Boom. And we
I
just
feel
move
like
on
that's
with
the
our lives.
best way to do grappling.
It just keeps things moving. Speaking
Yeah.
of making things simple, one of my favorite rules to do is I ignore encumbrance. I think it's just more math and spreadsheet keeping at the table. That said, again, I ask my players, please be logical. Don't be walking around with like 47, bricks in your pockets and 18 weapons on your back. It's like, no, you can't do that. But, if you have a logical amount of stuff with you, cool. Just police yourselves. Very rarely do I ever actually have to call someone out. Say again?
It's a 17 pewter cups that you found.
You guys have a bag of holding, though, so that works.
Yeah.
In currency, it doesn't weigh anything. It's currency goes into your wallet. Boom, problem solved.
Yeah.
Do you
feel like
guys play with currency? Or currency having weight and stuff?
Currency does technically have weight in 5th edition, although it's pretty unrealistic. Like, it's very generous to the player.
Yeah, because a gold coin a pile of those would get pretty heavy pretty fast.
Yeah, it's even got the little switch box in D&D Beyond where you can just turn off the weight of coins. Or actually, I think you have to turn on coins to have weight. Like by default.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
The default coins don't have weight. But yes, when you do turn it on, it's like, oh, my 100 gold pieces only weigh 5 pounds. Well, that's nice.
That's sweet of them.
Tiny coins.
The encumbrance rules for 5th edition are really generous anyways. What is 15 times your strength score?
Yeah, I think so.
It's out there.
Yeah, and most parties at some point get a bag of holding somehow, some way. And it's almost like a subconscious effort on the DM's part, or very conscious effort on the DM's part to find them make a pathway for them to walk around into a bag of holding. So you just don't have to worry. It's just DM fiat. Here's a bag of holding. Let's not worry about encumbrance anymore.
It doesn't hurt that they put it on magic item table A and B, so it's some of the most common stuff.
Yeah, super easy to find nowadays, which is fun. But I just tend to not worry about it. But then I try to make getting things out of the bag of holding more of a big deal. Like, you're not going to be able to reach into the bag of holding and pull out your favorite sword. It's like, yeah, in the middle of combat, you're going to have some time on you. But if you're using it as a wagon, okay, cool, whatever. It's over there somewhere.
Yep. One of the other things that I'm super fond of is dragging good rules from other games back into different games. For instance, one of my favorites to drag all over the place is that you don't run out of ammo until you make a mistake. Which, if you're playing a game that has critical failure, means you roll a critical failure. Well, you're out of ammo now. Even though you just shot 147 arrows, now you're out of ammo.
Yeah, it's harder to, with modern or sci-fi games where you're using bullets or lasers, you can hand wave that stuff away. But if someone, you can see that Legolas has 12 arrows in his quiver. That's what he's got. So it's kind of harder, in my opinion, on that, but...
I just sort of shrug it off. It's like, hey, you're in a battle. Maybe you're picking up other arrows and using those. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Until you critically fail. Now you're out of arrows, and that becomes an issue because if you're an archer build character, you're like, well, no, I'm not out of arrows. Well, you just shot 150 arrows. Yes, you're out of arrows.
Yes. Yeah, no more
You're
arrows.
not hauling around a whole bundle of arrows like that.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Well, you have your arrow caddy.
Yeah.
I recommend the
That's a real thing that archers had. They had guys that actually carried out huge bundles of arrows and stuck them in the ground for them.
Oh yeah, they're stewards. Yeah, fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
Followers for.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you guys what your opinion was on resource management for stuff like that. Because I think that it's irritating. Because it's just more things that I have to keep track of. Because I know most of my players won't keep track of it themselves.
Anything that is common is not worth tracking.
Yeah.
Arrows especially is the big one. Why am I tracking arrows? But torches is another good example. Like, how hard is it to make a torch anywhere? The answer is not hard at all.
No, you can figure out some way to light something on fire.
Do you have a stick? Do you have anything combustible? Combine those two things and congratulations, you have a torch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm picky. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm picky about specialty arrows or I don't like silver tipped arrows, rope arrows, that kind of thing. Then I'm like, yeah, you have 5, use them wisely. But like, if it's a regular arrow, I assume that once you're done with combat, you go through and collect as many,
Yeah, you
as
police
you
the
can.
battlefield.
Yeah, like just put them back in or take arrows from the other bad guys or whatever. Like, it's just one more thing that I have to keep track of if there's resource management. So
Yep.
I hate it.
For me as a DM, I think it has its time and place, and it's generally tier 1 when the party is broke and weak to begin with. So like Tomb of Annihilation has the kind of whole hex crawl thing where you can explore the jungle, and I think the default assumption is that you're going to be kind of poor on resources and it's going to be a slog. And maybe you do that for a session or two, but to do that for months on end in a campaign, I would gouge my eyes out.
Yeah, I could see it being really cool in a like. I also don't force players to eat. It's like, hey, you have trail rations. Boom, there you go. And I don't make them
Yeah.
keep track of them. It's like, no, every time you go back to town, you restock your salt pork, just because. Yeah, it's a mechanic that I don't think really brings a whole lot to role playing, unless you have that chef trait that I was talking about in the previous part, and you want to be like, hey, I take all your salt pork and make salt Krabby Patties or whatever.
Yeah. With the Icewind Dale announcement, I think they had mentioned, oh yeah, players are going to have to, be smart about their resources and stuff.
Yeah.
But immediately I saw people piling on, oh, all they need is, the druid or the guy with the summon create
berry.
food spell. And
Berry.
that eliminates that whole, resource management issue.
Yeah, I could see it being really interesting to be playing in those kinds of situations where you go to the Tomb of Annihilation or you go to Icewind Dale, and it's a harsh, terrible environment, and you have to be making all these checks. But that's an exception. That's not how I would want to be running everyday games.
But the flip side of that is, like, if you're playing Tomb of Annihilation with any hope of actually getting past the end encounter, spoiler alerts, you are playing in a group that has like plus 15 to your rolls, at which point you should be able to roll survival in the middle of a barren dungeon and still find something to eat.
Scrape the moss off the walls and suck
Right.
it down.
Yeah.
Well, that does kind of tie into the idea that I was, going to bring up previously, but it works now. Do you guys let or make them roll if they want to do something that's impossible, and then like I want to run up a vertical wall, or do you just say no, you can't do that? That's obviously you can't do that, and I don't care. You can roll all the 20s in the world, you're still not going to make that thing happen. So sort of crit successes and failures in skills and crit failure at all.
Depends on the player. Honestly, it honestly depends on the player.
Yeah, I think at this point I've trained my players well enough not to ask for impossible shit. Because I've let them make foolish rolls like that and explain to them afterwards, well, the DC was like 35, so there's no way in hell that's going to happen because physics or,
Yeah.
reality, or which is maybe a dumb thing to say when you're playing pretend, but there's still rules, there's still laws.
Yeah, you expect
Yeah,
things to work the way
absolutely.
that they should work.
For me, I think maybe with a social check, if they have a good in-character explanation, like they're actually saying it, not just trying to have the dice dictate the situation, but probably less likely to do it for jumping a 100-foot chasm.
Yeah, I'm a big
Unless
fan
your
of using
character is Trogdor the Barbarian, who can actually jump 100 feet.
Trogdor's a dragon. He's a
Dragon.
Yes.
man.
Okay, yes, Trogdor is also a dragon.
Yeah, sorry.
Trogdor the Dragon Barbarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really depends on what's going on. If it's like super, super impossible, then I just tell them like no. But also if it's a stupid idea that they're just hell-bent on, then I'll let them try and then hurt themselves. Like, I don't, but I usually give them a warning. Like, are you sure? You can try to do that.
Yeah,
Which is DM code word for
And then they
you need to
felt-
reconsider your life choices.
exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, exactly.
for that kind of thing where it's like, hey, I want to run up this, I'm going to sprint at this wall and then run 50 feet straight up. When you're rolling the die, that's not how successful you're going to be. That's your level of how hard is this going to hurt when you run into that wall. You roll a 20, it's like, hey, you bounce off the wall and you take 2 points of damage. Good for you. You rolled a 3.
Congrats.
You're a red smear. Enjoy your 15 points of damage, you dumbass.
Yeah.
I leaned heavily towards letting players actually make good rolls and succeed at good rolls. So if somebody told me, hey, I'm just going to run across when I run across the wall against this chasm, I'm like, well, what's your character's dexterity? And they're like, 12. I'm like, your character is not good enough to do that. Flat
Yeah.
out not good enough to do that. I'm sorry. But if, the Tabaxi monk who has 20 dexterity says, I'm going to try that, you're like, cool, go ahead and make a roll. This is not going to be easy.
Yeah,
I could see
that's
stuff
fair.
like that being worthwhile.
But just saying there's a chance.
Right,
It's
right,
just-
yeah.
There's
You
a chance.
you
Save
can
tonight.
technically pull off a wall run. I'm going to allow that you can do that. Because,
Good luck.
again, this is supernatural characters at a certain point.
Yeah.
They're doing things that do defy physics. But if you have 12 dexterity, I'm sorry. You're not
Yeah.
defying physics.
Yeah, when characters get to level 20, these are literal god killers. They've reached the peak of mortal life, basically. They're more
Yeah.
powerful than anybody else on that planet, or maybe in the next couple of planes of existence.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's a point
Again,
where belief is
characteristics have to matter.
It's true,
If you
yeah.
want your character to actually be able to wall run at a certain point, invest in the things that they need, like constitution, strength, and dexterity.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
Well, what do you guys
I
think
have
about the idea of like the critical failures, for instance? Like I know that's a really kind of contentious topic out there. Have you ever used it and successfully?
Yes. Critical failures are my favorite.
define successfully.
for
In a
us,
way that did not ruin a campaign or make everyone walk away very angry.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'll go. I ran because it was part of the rules for 3.0. I ran a full campaign using critical failure in 3.0, and it did not make people want to kill me. I don't think.
Okay.
And it did not ruin the campaign. It is possible to play with critical failure and everything to go completely okay.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I personally hated it because it's really crappy to have to tell somebody you not only did you fail, you failed really badly, and it's gonna hurt.
Well, they can read the dice, so they know that they failed really badly.
Right. Yeah, but just coming back to reiterate, because again, in 3.0 is written, critical failures on combat rolls are a thing.
Yeah.
But then it was sort of like, and then your GM can decide what that means. It's like, whoa, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, that's not fair to the DM.
Yeah, we don't have
I-
enough power.
It depends, like in combat, especially with a critical failure, it depends on the layout of the battle as well. So, like, if you're trying to shoot at something that's like partially blocked by another person, and you critical fail, then like, probably friendly fire. But if you're, shooting at an unarmed person, or you're trying to swing a sword at somebody who's like right in front of you and you miss, then your sword gets stuck in the ground, or you fall on your back, or like something silly, but that's not like critically game ending. Although
Yeah,
I
standard
did have
fumbles
a
chart. Yeah.
PC death because of a crit fail, which was so like the crit fail happened and the barbarian slashed the rogue, and then they didn't take the time to heal before going into the next room to fight the big bad guy.
Oh.
So like,
Yeah.
it's kind of my fault.
not directly, but
Yeah.
yeah, all right.
Just go ahead and
Yeah.
chalk it up in your GM win column.
Yeah.
Take that
PC
road.
death. Check.
I've offered critical fails as an option to players, but in a lot of these like homebrew rules, it's like if it applies to y'all, it applies to the bad guys too. Like
Oh yeah.
flanking, critical failure, stuff like that. And like, I don't do critical failures for skill checks. I don't do critical successes for skill checks either, because we talked about these higher DCs. But I make that an option as far as critical fails go, because if a bad guy rolls a 1 and something horrible happens to them, the players love it. They just have to want it. They just have to love it enough to be willing to accept it happening to them.
Sorry, cat's snoring on my feet. Yeah, that's that's a great way to do it. I don't do any just one-sided things where only where the DC or the PCs play by different rules than the NPCs. The best critical fail deck or critical fail and success system that I saw was, I believe it was Paizo put these out, and they were critical fail and critical success decks. So you roll a critical and you confirm the critical, however you want to work it. You roll a 20. Usually you'd roll a 20 again, or you roll a die again, and if that one hits, it confirms the crit, and then you get a draw from the deck. And the deck has everything from triple damage to your spell does extra things to you disarmed them. I think 1 or 2 cards were decapitate, thing is dead. So there always some kind of extra bonus, and you can always choose to not try to roll the confirm the crit, but instead you just take the double damage that normally comes with it. The best part though was the critical fail deck, because when you roll on that, and it's like, all right, you rolled a 1, roll again. If you failed, if you wouldn't hit, if it's an attack roll and you need to make a DC 15, you roll a 1. All right, you failed. Then you roll again. You only make a 10. So all right, you've draw from the critical fail deck. Congratulations, you get. You've fumbled, you've slipped, you've fallen all the way up to you've impaled yourself on your own sword, and take this much damage and bleed out. I thought that brought a lot of fun to the table, because whenever one thing on either extreme happened, my party would just say, yeah, this is a great time. Let's see what thing happens. Oh, paper cut, or whatever. And it always made success and failure an event at the table.
Yeah, but now you're talking about confirming criticals.
Yeah.
That's totally different, and it moves it from. So right now you have a 5% chance to critically succeed or a 5% chance to critically fail. That is the default rules.
Yes.
Once you start talking about confirming, and now you're talking about
a different
basically
number.
a 2% chance.
Well, no, because it goes.
No, it's even worse. Yeah.
No, it's not, because to confirm, it's you have to roll the critical the first time. If it's an attack, then you roll a 20, and then the next roll just has to hit.
Yep.
So you just have to beat its AC.
But you're moving further away from that original 5%. It becomes a totally different set of math, which makes it rare.
It does, yeah.
Not super rare, but rare, especially the critical failures. I personally hugely love what Fantasy Flight did with the Genesis and Star Wars rules, where your dice results can allow you to succeed and also critically fail. So you have successfully done the thing that you were trying to do, but something really bad has happened. They're called despairs. They are fantastic because, yeah, you can absolutely succeed. You 100% shot Darth Vader in the face. Now tell me what bad thing is going to happen because you shot Darth Vader in the face?
He's still alive.
Well, yes,
He's
obviously
angrier.
Darth Vader is still alive. That's the other issue. But maybe he blows up your blaster. Things like that. Those are all possibilities.
Turns your trachea.
But the flip side of that is you can also fail a roll and have a triumph. So you have a critical success that is unrelated to your inability to do whatever you were trying to do. So let's say you were trying to climb up a cliff and you didn't make it. You just didn't make it. But you rolled a triumph, so maybe a friendly flying creature comes through and picks you up.
So
all right, interesting.
It's luck.
Yeah.
It's luck, yeah.
It is luck in the sense of within the system that you are being saved by something else. In most cases, but it could also be you failed your roll to find the way to or find forage food, but a local animal shows up and it shows you where to go. Which
You
sort of
really like
negates
the animal
ultimate
companion there,
roll.
don't you?
Well, I mean, it's an easy Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
To just say an animal shows up and it does the thing, or it shows you the thing.
Gotcha.
In 5th edition, I like the Chaos Sorcerer for a little bit of critical fails. If I've got a player operating one of them, I will fully embrace the tides of chaos and just let it rain down upon the party.
I am not familiar with
bad.
that. Can you give us a little bit of details?
So I think unlike the positive and negative, there's 10 or 20 different things that could happen, from being turned into a potted plant to having a fireball go off at your location to being turned permanently blue. There's other good things too, I think, like being under the effect of an aid spell for a minute.
It's a full D100 table.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
See, I love that kind of stuff, especially when it comes to Magic. Like, that's a huge thing in DCC back there somewhere. Where, I don't know. I'm trying to line up in my mirror, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that can happen when Magic goes wrong. And I love, as opposed to like, oh, well, your spell fails and you lose the slot. I love something else coming into that. I think that's a really cool way to do that. I didn't know that was in there though. Which source book is Chaos Sorcerer in?
Well, Player's Handbook. I may be
Oh.
saying that it's just your baseline sorcerer.
Oh, the Wild Magic Sorcerer.
Wild Magic.
Wild
Wild
magic,
Magic, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I've never read the Sorcerer rules.
But in the DMG, they've got Wild Magic zones, so you can really
Yes.
apply that anywhere you want.
Yeah, it's great. I actually DM'd for some friends a couple years back, and one of them was playing a Wild Magic Sorcerer, and we both just love that table. And it's like, how about we make this more interesting? We kind of modified it where there'd be a much greater chance of him rolling on that table. And at one point, the Wild Magic surged and summoned a unicorn.
Oh my gosh.
It was hilarious.
I hope it was
the
like an
funniest damn
angry
thing.
unicorn.
It was one of the most memorable gaming moments that I've had, because no one else saw it happen, and another player who was playing a bard convinced everyone that they did it.
That's fantastic.
I love that.
It's amazing.
Then the bard
That
was
brings
chased
me
down by
joy.
the Inquisition and killed.
See,
Yeah.
it's stuff like that I can get behind as far
Yeah.
as like home rules, modifying existing charts to fill it out and stuff. And not like breaking the core mechanics, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense on that front. Anything else? Any weird ways you guys like playing with the critical stuff, or do you just like the system as is, or as we've discussed, I guess?
I think I need to reevaluate critical success and failures on skill checks for my own self, like for my own games.
You should check out that deck that I linked.
Yeah, I
Fun
want
stuff.
that so bad. I'm gonna buy it when we're done.
There's also, I think I only linked the crit success deck, but there's also a crit fail deck.
Yeah, I'm gonna need that too.
They're fun. Hey, it actually looks like we got a hype train going, guys. Fantastic.
Choo choo.
Chugga chugga.
I think the rules in 5th edition do mention, succeeding or failing skill checks by a certain amount could potentially, yield different results. So
Yeah, they absolutely do. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of a critical success failure in hiding.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that system in there. I just need to find it again in the DMG because I'm trying to get better at this, guys. But I love that idea of degrees of success or degrees of failure. Again, looking at you're trying to do the impossible task. It's clearly not going to happen. I'm not going to tell you because I want you to roll a die. But it's like, all right, you failed by not a huge margin, so okay, you don't die. Congratulations.
Ooh,
I mean, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is the succeeding with style, this modern game design theory.
succeeding. with
True.
style.
Not only did you accomplish the goal that you were seeking to, you did it in a way that creates another advantage, generates a advantageous situation for either you or somebody else.
Yeah, if you beat the
I like
DC by a lot, it's like, hey, I'll give you
Yep.
some extra bonus. Cool. As
Yep.
opposed to just you gracefully did it, no problem happens.
Yep.
Okay.
I have a question for you guys about that kind of stuff. So, like, for role playing skill checks, especially like charisma based ones or, intelligence based ones, I like to modify the DC depending on the role play. Generally, it's always modifying it down. So,
Yeah.
like, if you role play something super well, I'm going to lower the DC because you've impressed me. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, I don't know if anyone else does that, but I just feel like
Oh yeah, big fan of that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it encourages good roleplay.
Mhm.
And on some of my, some tables that I played with a lot, I've actually seen the DC go up when they're just like, I asked the guard about this thing and roll intimidation. It's like, all right, cool. It was going to be a DC 16, but now it's a DC 20. Congratulations, you were lazy, and it's going to show.
I'm gonna be Donnie Downer here. Sorry, guys. I don't agree with that. I don't tend to do it. I understand the attraction and the reason for it. But I have played with players who are socially inept on a level that is probably not easily described.
Yeah.
And that level of pressure can really hurt their ability to play the face character, which is what they want to do because they want an opportunity to understand social dynamics within a system that they can actually see numbers for.
That's fair.
Yeah, at that point, it's caveated by know your table.
Yeah,
I get that.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
think-
What were you gonna say?
I would be more willing to give advantage or disadvantage, particularly if they're working together as a team, and that's an effective ±5 to their die roll.
I forgot about the advantage and disadvantage system. I always do. That's,
I always
Right.
forget.
Well, I mean, D&D is great because if you're using the old flim-flam method, where one guy flims and the other guy flams, you're always working at advantage on things like deception or negotiation,
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that being worthwhile.
which is huge. But it also means you got to talk to other people, which is another,
Yeah.
net disadvantage for people that are not very social.
See, like, I think for me, for the skill checks, when I modify them, it's more encouraging people to try to be more social, like, and to try and role play more. Because I've played a lot of campaigns where there's just zero role play. It's just like dice rolls in combat and dice rolls in combat and dice rolls in combat, and that gets repetitive for me, I feel. So I try to encourage the player interaction, and if it's a long-term campaign, I want the party to be friends. I want them to mesh and be comfortable enough with each other to be able to roleplay like that, so
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's
I'm not saying that it's wrong.
oh no,
That's what I'm taking away from this, Rob.
What's that?
You're wrong.
That's my
Yeah.
takeaway.
That's one of the things that, kind of depending on the group, I may or may not advertise it, because I usually don't tell them the DC if they succeed or fail anyway, but I'm like,
Yes.
oh, you know what, that was very well said. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
bump that down a couple points. So that does count as success after all.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
with a group that is streaming live, you're not going to have very many people who are super uncomfortable in social situations. So it's very easy to go, hey, you delivered an amazing speech. I'm going to go ahead and just make your DC a little bit lower, and you passed.
Oh, I
Even though-
never
Yeah.
tell DCs. Like, that's just a thing.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a roll perception, who beat this number, then I put out the thing. But if it's like, all right, do a skill check, roll the dice. So DCs as a default don't end up getting broadcast out for skill checks like that. So for my table, they wouldn't know if it went up or down.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is if I have somebody who's not normally engaging on that level, and they decide to engage and it's really good, I'm just going to go, all right, you passed.
Yeah.
And they go,
Yeah.
I didn't even roll dice. I'm like, doesn't matter.
Well done. A+. You succeed. Yeah. Yeah, I only ever out the DCs for things if they've completely crushed it. If it's a DC 10 and they roll a 28, I'm like, well, it was 10, but A+ is good job, guys.
That's a solid way to do it.
But I don't tell them roll at least a 15 to kick in that door. That's no. Silly.
Yeah, I agree on that front point. So
That's a underlying debate in gaming circles is how opaque or transparent should you be about the challenge levels involved in player roles.
ooh, let's go there, guys.
And different systems have different baseline expectations. D&D does not have any, which is weird. It's super weird, by the way, to not have any expectations on that. It basically just says, we don't care what you do. Do whatever you want to.
Do whatever you want.
Have fun.
But Mac is a big OSR fan, the old school role-playing stuff. Old school role-playing specifically says that players should not know how hard things are.
Yeah.
Pass, fail, or otherwise. And on the flip side, you have modern role-playing systems like Dungeon World that say not only should the players know what the difficulty is, they should be completely transparent, so when they roll their dice, they know what's going on, what their chances are, how hard it's going to be.
Secrets.
Yeah, I can see the appeal in that, but nah.
I feel like it boils down to common sense too. If you walk up to a door and it's stone and you're like, I'm gonna kick it in, your chances of that's just the only one I can come up with right now. But your chances of kicking in
it's a good point.
Yeah.
a stone door versus wood door, one's going to be significantly easier than the other based on your strength modifier.
How transparent are you on at your tables there, Josh?
Yeah, Josh.
You've been
Well,
quiet for a while, so I'm hoping you got something interesting.
I will do a lot of rolling in front of the players at the table.
Okay.
So it could be 5 20s in a row and they're getting demolished, but when that string of ones comes along, they see it happen. I think maybe the only exception is as a DM, I will tend to fudge the initiative rolls a little bit, just to spread out some of the minions throughout the combat,
I can see
But-
that. Yeah, that makes sense.
help things pace along, so it's not the player action economy against crushing the NPCs before the round's over.
Yeah, a couple of the games, last few sessions I've run, I'm like, hey, I got all this. They're dead. All right, well.
Yeah, no, it can be painful, especially if all of your minions roll very poorly and they start the encounter basically engaged. Especially with a fighter who happens to have 2-weapon fighting style and clean.
87 actions.
Yeah, just start cleaving things in half. But I do like that
Oh,
rolling
my
in front
God.
of rolling in front of players thing. For the most part, like 90% of my rolls as a DM are going to be behind the screen. That's just because leaning across the screen to do that is, it's a hassle, and I will fudge the numbers to sort of help things move along narratively if they are necessary. But if it comes up to, hey, we're fighting the big boss, and they're bringing their giant 14-foot axe down. This roll's happening on that side of the curtain, guys. You guys get to see this giant cinematic moment, and I'm not fudging this. This is what you get.
Yeah,
So I sort of
like doing that for the very dramatic moments. Like, all right, everybody's watching, just bated breath, like,
Is it gonna happen? Are we gonna die?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are we going to talk about magic items at all? Homebrew magic items?
I wasn't planning on doing that, but you certainly can. Let's make this happen. I don't use homebrew magic items because I'm lazy.
I personally don't like it myself, although I do like using what the DMG has provided us, the tables to modify the plethora of items out there. Give it a history, a quirk, a minor power.
Yeah.
That's what I'm all about.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to be doing that. It gives you enough variety while you still know, hey, this is a thing that someone who gets paid to do this has written.
Plus, I don't accidentally break a core mechanic by handing out something I made up.
The cornucopia of endless yams. I don't know what I do with this.
Why are there so many yams?
I am less afraid of homebrew items. That maybe just, again, 20 years of experience tells me what will and will not break games, especially in the hands of certain kinds of players. But on the flip side, with 5th edition, because it's set up the way it is and the magic item economy is designed the way that it is, in a limited scope for the people who aren't familiar with 5th edition, you can't just have all the bling and walk around with all of the bonuses. You have a certain limit on magical items, and it's because it tries to keep the power levels reasonable. I'm less comfortable providing magic items in the 5th edition environment just because, giving them a magic item that is better than where they should have for their level can change combat encounters significantly. And giving them magic items that don't have continual utility to them, we'll just see that magic item discarded, which is very disappointing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
something I'd like to do a little extra, even just for mundane items, armor, weapons, whatever, is give those items, especially at early levels when they're not going to be getting heaps of magic items yet, is just give it a little extra description. It's not just, oh, you found a longsword. Well, okay, what is its provenance? What is it? Who's it? What's its origin? Who made it? Can you tell how old it is? So it still makes them feel like they found something special, and makes it feel unique without throwing them a +3 longsword at level 2.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to do that, I think.
I
Taking
like
notes.
relatively useless homebrew magic items, like small magic items. So when I first started running Curse of Strahd, I ran the Death House encounter and that was my first time DMing. My first DMing experience was Curse of Strahd and Death House, and I was trying to make it fun. So I went through and I found a bunch of really small, relatively useless homebrew magic items, and I sprinkled them throughout the house because there was a rogue in the party, and I was like, he's gonna definitely search everywhere. They bypassed 7 out of the 10, I think. So they ended up with a cursed muffin.
What?
I think it was something like if you eat it, it like reversed your gravity for 1d6 minutes or something, so you just start like floating and then potentially fall. And then they found a magical torchbearer, so it was just like a little mechanic torchbearer who would like crawl after the amulet, and like it does nothing other than carry torches, but they loved it. They named it Regis. They tried to make Regis scout things, and I'm like, no, he only follows, but it's silly.
Yeah.
Or Cloak of Billowing, silly stuff like that like makes the players feel special but has no actual impact on the mechanics of the game.
That sounds
Those are
awesome.
great because the players are going to enjoy them regardless of the fact they have no real utility. Although
Exactly.
something that carries your torches around, kind of great.
Yeah, it was pretty funny watching them try to figure out what it did, because they're like, I'm gonna put my sword in its claw, and I want to see if I put it this way. They spent like 10 minutes trying to figure out how to use it.
See, that's actually kind of the exception to what I stated. I love trinkets, those little minor things that might have a little spark of magic in them, but mechanically don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
The locket.
Or don't do anything that's
Cool.
out of line with what you can get a hireling to do.
Yeah, the biggest thing they do is provide entertainment value to everyone.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Or one of my favorites was one of our GMs gave us a fire elemental. It was a young fire elemental, and he said, the only drawback to this young fire elemental is that he won't fight for you, and he never shuts up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
basically they had a light that would constantly give them away in dungeons.
Just singing
That's
as you go
amazing.
along.
Yeah.
Do, 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 do.
In the Curse of Strahd campaign I was running, the players came across a random like hanging tree with a noose hanging from it, and they took the noose to have the rope to bring with them, and whenever they slept, the noose would untie itself and then kind of snuggle up. So it was like an animated rope, but it would try to softly strangle them at night.
That's amazing.
Curse of Strahd.
I have
That's
missed an
Oh my
opportunity.
gosh.
Strahd appropriate, very much. Yes.
We avoided that tree, Carly. You didn't miss an opportunity because we intentionally missed it. We were like,
They saw the tree and they were like,
nope.
Hanging
We're
tree
sure
is
no
not
French flag
Transylvania?
here.
I'm not
Hanging
going
tree.
there.
That seems like a thing to avoid.
Yes.
Exactly.
I
You
like
guys are
that though. That's
And they loved that rope. They took it with
Yeah.
them everywhere. It never killed them. It just
it just tries.
It's
Something
very funny.
strangles them.
You
It
wake
didn't
up
have
and
no
it's
magic
sleep
left.
on your neck.
I love that so much. Oh my goodness. That's fantastic.
Let's see. Anything else that? Oh, I think we completely glazed over alignment. How do you guys handle alignment at your tables? Because we might as well end on an angry note, right?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Everybody get your torches and pitchforks out. Okay.
Grr, alignment.
I'll go ahead and be frank. I don't use alignment besides don't be evil. Or if you want to run an evil character in this campaign, you must run it past me first. Because so many players out there don't do good evil characters. They do Snidely Whiplash, tying people to the railroads, or just murder everybody. And it's like, that's...
Yeah, or they just play dicks. Like, that's,
Yeah. That's not the goal.
Yeah.
That's not an alignment.
Yeah, it's not fun. But besides that, I'm just like, yeah, do whatever works for you, because there's no real mechanics behind alignment anymore, besides a couple magic items and a couple spells or something like that. But besides that, no, do whatever you need. I'm not going to check it.
As I noted, Detect Evil has never been a thing in my campaigns. Yeah, it's partly because I've never really cared about alignment as a mechanic.
I don't think that spell even does it anymore. Like, it's still
It
around.
does not work on humanoids.
Yeah.
So just like, is this an evil tree?
Detect Evil now is basically, is this fire evil?
Detect Good and Evil now only works like on literal celestials and fiends. Maybe Fae and undead. Let you detect
cannot
four things.
Yep, you cannot detect player or NPC alignment with any of those spells. That's
Actually,
just let it go, wizards. Just let it go.
But there is a way to do it with Nistel's magic aura, you can do some shenanigans with it and give them an aura that makes them seem evil.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I have I went with a fiend for my familiar because it's evil. Like it has to be evil. So if anybody was gonna do detect good or evil, because I think the last campaign I was playing in was actually had Renyan from the Vulcan Weave in it, and he did something and he's like, I detect evil. It's like, nope, nope, nope. It's the bird. It was like, there we go.
What?
Sorry. I was just gonna say I like alignments personally. I think that they, especially for newer players, once you're a more experienced player, I'm not quite as picky about alignment. And it depends on the campaign. If you're running, say, Curse of Strahd, which I'm running twice, alignment matters in that campaign specifically. Like, there are certain mechanics of the game that function based off of the alignment of the players that you have. So, but I think it gives newer players a good jumping off point for roleplay. Like, if they choose someone who's lawful good, they have that like foundation to build off of for how they want to play their character. But once you're playing for a longer period of time, I'm not as picky. I just don't allow evil characters in my campaigns unless it's expressly discussed at length.
What about lawful evil?
Lawful's just gross regardless. Lawful's so boring.
Somebody that played a lawful evil character, and that was the most obnoxious character I've ever played with, was the lawful evil one.
I love lawful evil characters because it's them first. It would be like a lawyer in the real world. Well, some lawyers.
That's probably why I don't like it. Yeah.
Them first is but it's also, it depends because they're going to look out for things that are important for them. They have a reason to support the structure of society, even if they disagree with some of the rules. They have a reason to support their neighbor because their neighbor does good things for them. A lawful evil character is probably the most interesting form of evil character in D&D, but it's also almost never played correctly.
Yeah.
When I DM, I ask no neutral evil characters or chaotic evil, keeping that to the realm of the NPCs that are out there they're fighting against.
Yeah,
But,
that makes sense.
I do allow lawful evil.
Yeah, because I get neutral evil and chaotic evil or chaotic evil, frankly, in most of my experience, tends to be where people end up landing. We're like, I'm playing an evil character, and I'm gonna burn everything down and stab all the women. It's like, what? Why? Why are you doing this? This makes no sense. It's because my alignment. Yeah.
There's something to be said for an evil campaign or an evil one shot.
Oh yeah, sure.
Evil
absolutely.
campaigns get kind of weird.
Yeah.
I will note that I did play a lawful evil character in the previous campaign that I played with Zatar's player, Primula. The end of the campaign was basically all the other players asked me, "Is your character seriously lawful evil?" And I said, "Yes." They said, "But he didn't behave like a lawful evil character would." I said, "Oh, and how's that?" Every opportunity there was to loot stuff, he looted it, and he didn't necessarily tell you that he had. Every opportunity to look out for himself, he took, including a couple of times leaving them to their own devices against enemy characters because it didn't make any sense for him to engage. Like, that's your mess, deal with it. He was the fighter, by the way.
Oh.
Nice.
So I said, no, he was a lawful evil character. I just don't play him. I don't play any lawful evil character as a mustache twirling villain because that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
True.
There's a great video Matt Colville did a couple years ago of very clear like pop culture examples of the alignment chart that I think really kind of helps elucidate the differences between the 9 different alignments there, and where they're good references for anybody that's just starting. Just if you've got any kind of pop culture knowledge at all.
That makes sense.
I love a good alignment chart.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that just splay things all over the place. I've always liked the vertical dichotomy. The good evil is basically I've always looked at it as like selfish versus selfless. Like that's a much more tangential kind of like you can hunker onto that. and I can't remember law versus chaos what that way is because I don't use the chart anymore.
I've shown you this sandwich alignment chart. Have an iMac.
Yeah, probably. You send me a lot of weird stuff, so
To me, that's the most relatable because people will immediately understand what's going on, because the lawful good sandwich is literally just the BLT, whereas the chaotic evil sandwich is the Pop Tart.
what? Right? No,
sandwich.
you did send that. You did send that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
It's more like a pasty.
It meets the requirements of a sandwich. It
I mean,
has
by that, so does
two
a hot
breads
dog.
and something in between it.
It has one bread. It's okay. We're way off
It's a
topic.
continuous. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's a pastry. It's not a sandwich. It's like saying.
So with the alignments, do you choose bonds and flaws and the other stuff that's in the same section in 5th edition? Do you fill it out on your sheet?
I don't.
I often do. Yeah, when
I
I'm,
do.
when I'm making a character, yeah, I look at those. I may not always use the exact ones there, but I often do, and try and stick with. Try to, not always, but try and stick with bonds and flaws, things like that, that fit the kind of fit the alignment of the character in my head, or maybe I use those to decide on the alignment of the character in my head.
That works.
Yeah, I like it for starting off, like
Mhm.
guidance.
Or
Yeah.
are these the? Oh, actually, no. I do use these because I think that when you put it into D&D Beyond, it's just like, hey, what's this thing for you?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
no,
bonds,
I
flaws,
have
ideals.
used those. Yeah.
It's not that I don't use them per se. It's that I've been running games so long that even when I'm playing characters now, I basically use the same rules that I would use for NPCs. Rafe has 3 traits, and no, I'm not going to reveal what they are. But those are the 3 traits that I use to determine what makes sense for Rafe to do in any given situation. There's also a random element there, which is, does Rafe perceive himself to be safe? Because that will affect Rafe's decision making as well.
Is Rafe safe?
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Currently, I think he's fine.
Yeah. Things are going great now.
Yeah.
No. I am terrible at writing backstory for my characters, so I like to use the bonds, flaws, and ideals as a way for me to like figure out the backstory, and then I'll write like
Yeah.
a couple of bullet points because I
Have you
am bad at that.
have you checked out Xanathar's "This Is Your Life"? They really kicked it up a notch.
Yeah.
I
they
have
did.
I love that section.
It is amazing
Each of the
for
classes are great.
NPCs or PCs.
Yeah. For I've used it a couple times for NPCs, and then the party never talks to them. I was like, oh, why?
Why spend so much time with these?
It was like 20
Remember,
minutes.
the first rule of
Yeah,
NPCs:
for me.
all NPCs are a 3x5 index card with
Mhm.
nothing except for their traits and what they can offer the party until the party engages further with them.
Yeah. I learned that lesson. But I do like the having. I think I put this on some other happy hour. I do like having the handful of bullet points of give me 3 very simple statements about your character as opposed to going into alignment. I think that just gives you a much better sense of what a character is versus the 9 grid. That's just
The fate style aspects that
Yeah.
describe your character. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that's probably. I feel like we can have a whole lot of other conversations going on here, but it's already 9 o'clock in East Coast time.
Oh yeah, for you guys.
Yeah, we got to go to bed soon. So I think we'll go ahead and cut it off here. Maybe we'll try and get the gang back together at some point in the future. But everybody out there, thank you so much for tuning in. We got a hype trading going, so that was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Make sure you check us out on our Discord if you want to jump in on some fantastic conversations. We have
Yeah.
a DM section that you can ask DM questions. We have a general RPG section where you can ask general RPG questions or just talk about an awesome game you had. We always have games going. There's always people looking to run games on the Discord. So check us out. There's a lot of really fun stuff there. And then you get to rub elbows with the cast and talk to us about how things are going with us and how things are going with you. And so tomorrow is same time, 7 p.m. is the Velkin Weave. There'll probably be a couple of these guys on there. Where are you guys at right now?
The Fey Market.
Fey Market.
Get around in the face.
He says, shamelessly revealing that he doesn't actually watch your show.
I'm trying to let them talk about their show.
Sure, Mac.
That's okay. There was some discussion about usurping you guys and getting to the Fey Market first, but
We're like, hey.
we opted not to.
I think it was the tech goblins ended up not updating the stream or something, so we came up as the Falcon Weave heads to the Fate Market. We're like, yeah, screw our quest, let's take theirs. So
Yeah, we'll take your plot line. No big deal.
yeah, whatever. So
A lot of skeletons to be stopped. A whole lake full. We should figure that out while we're here too.
yeah, we'll no. So that's tomorrow night, the Vulcan Weave at the Fey Market. It'll be a good time. And then Thursdays is Whiskey, Magic, and Destruction. It's going to be me, Rob, and a bunch of other people, actually, are going to be there doing great stuff. We're continuing our trip to Mirabar. I had to look at my notes.
Yes, we're on the road to Mirabar, Mac. That is correct.
Yeah. We
Excellent.
just had a fun orc encounter. And
We're just about to be far enough away from the people we robbed to talk about the people that we robbed.
I'm so excited about it. And robbed is a very, loose term. But we'll save that for the next one. And then I believe there's a one shot that's coming up. I don't know if it's happening this weekend, so stay tuned into our Twitter on @thegames_tavern, and they will definitely post up when that happens. It's also going to be going into the Discord at the Discord link somewhere around here. And I believe Monday is That Mini's Paint Show again. And then we're going to roll straight into another happy hour. So that's your week. We'll see you around.
Whoop, whoop. Bye, guys.
Whiskey mimics and
All right, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in,
Thank you.
everybody. Bye.